It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Recoveries happen fast. So if you're one of these people that's trying to time it, here's a cautionary tale I'll tell you is that it's also a great moment in history. October 3rd of 2002. Great days in history. Do you know why that is so important? You kind of do because we talked about
I'm
it.
thinking about like important days in history, and
I tore my office apart looking for this. Here's what I want our listeners and our clients to know. If you watch any talk, say cable news, what happens at the commercial breaks? There's always, they have a newsletter that's being sold where they say, the person that called the downturn of 2002 or the dot-com bubble has got a new prediction for you. And they always say, hey, they called it, and they give them great weight.
Right.
You realize, Bo, if we were selling newsletters, we're sitting on a gold mine. Because I tell you, if I had music that we didn't have to pay royalties on, we'd put this with it. October 3rd of 2002 was the very first published column Brian Preston ever wrote.
now there's a picture of a guy. There's a young man in that picture.
That is a young man.
That's a young man in that picture.
This young man was trying to look as old as possible. But October 3rd of 2002, wrote my first column ever for a local newspaper in the metro Atlanta. And this was the title, What You Should Know in an Uncertain Market. Man, see how these trends don't change?
That's right.
And this is what I want you to know, is that I told people if you'll just stay the course, this type of behavior happens very quickly. And here's the cool thing. This prediction, this column was published 3 to 4 trading days from the dead bottom of the dot-com bubble. How cool is that?
Pretty impressive.
That is like being on record, an actual printed record of making a prediction that worked out. But here's the cool thing. I'm not a timer, so I don't even believe in it. I'm just telling you if you don't fall prey to because I didn't really know that we were 4 days from the down.
Sure.
I'm just giving you great advice. And here's the great advice that I was sharing when I wrote this piece. And this is the quote from the column. It says, on average, markets rise by 9.8% 1 month after they reach the bottom of a bear market.
So say that again. The market in the first month of recovery can make 10%.
These are the historical norms when I wrote this column back in 2002, is 9.8% in 1 month. So you're almost picking up a full year of performance because most people are really excited.
Yeah.
If you can make 10% a year,
It's a great year.
You're doing cartwheels. But markets, when they hit bottoms, you typically, historically, make 9.8% 1 month. If you fast forward and go, what does it make in 12 months, a full year, the number jumps up to be 26.2%.
I mean, that's the normal return for like a couple years, right? If you sat that out, you missed a big chunk of growth opportunity.
What I love about looking back on fun things, because that's a lot of time has passed since 2002, we can now go back and actually say, well, okay, Brian wrote this 4 days before we hit the dead bottom of the dot-com, so we don't know really what the recovery, even though I made that prediction,
Right.
I didn't know what the recovery actually was going to be. We can go now look at it. We can then also, now we've had the greatest recession since the Great Depression
Right.
in 2008 and 9. We can go back and look at those numbers because we can see the data. So let's see what happened when you actually look at those historical facts. Check this out. This was pretty exciting for me. The actual recovery from the dot-com, so from October 9th of 2002 to November 8th of 2002, the S&P 500 returned 15.2%.
So
It
well
was
above
better.
the
It was better
9.8%.
than the 9.8%. And then the 12-month recovery was 33.7%, well above the 26.2 historical average. So that was awesome. But check this out. And then I'm going to give you a phenomenon that happens, and you can pay attention to this, so it will help you cope. The deeper the fall, the better the recovery is what I want you to keep in mind. Because the Great Recession, we had the lowest point on March 9th. So from March 9th, 2009 to April 9th of 2009, that 1 month return was 26.6% in 1 month. I told
That's
you,
unbelievable.
but it was the Great Recession. So, realize this thing got crushed. So it makes sense that it made in 1 month. That's not a year, by the way. Even though it made a full year's return, multiple years returns. That's 1 month. A full year, 12 months from March 9th of 2009, the return was 68.57%.
The deeper the deeper the drawdown, the bigger the recovery.
It's kind of like the pluck effect. The tighter you pull a rubber band down, the more it's going to launch. And that's exactly what it has. So if you're going through heavy pain from a market downturn, I want you to give yourself some coping skills to know that if it's really steep on the down, the rise is going to be pretty quick, so that you need to be very careful about trying to time it.
Because you got to be there in order to get that. For those folks who hit that capitulation point in the fourth quarter of 2008 or first quarter of 2009 and said, you know what, I'm out, I can't take it, I can't handle it, they missed out on that.
That's exactly right.
68% rate of return on the upside.
Now, I'm not the first person to think about the steepness.
Sure.
This is actually Newton's third law of motion. I'm going to go ahead and just bridge it to investments, though, is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It works for investing. That's why you typically hear about market recoveries or what are called V-shaped recoveries. You don't hit the bottom and then ride there. It usually hits the bottom and then off to the races it goes. It's a V-shaped recovery. You had a Warrenism for this one, too.
Yeah, so what I think is so fortunate is, fortunately, we don't have a lot of 2002s or a lot of 2008s. I think you said, it happens once or twice a decade when you kind of have that downturn. And maybe we're in that right now, maybe we're not. Nobody knows, and that's kind of the beauty and the scary thing about investing is you don't know when that happens. But Warren did say this: opportunities come infrequently. When it rains gold, put out the bucket, not the thimble. So he says when there's opportunities that abound, you want to really make sure you capitalize and take advantage of those opportunities. What I think is really interesting is he doesn't mention the umbrella. He doesn't say run inside, get out of the rain. He says when there's opportunity there, you got to be present, you got to be willing to take advantage of that.